Okay, Unit 2, practice test. Here we go. What is the equation in vertex form of a parabola? Take that clue to the bank. So we know the parent function is going to be y equals x squared. Now we make our adjustment. Vertex negative 1, 8. So that means dot, dot, dot. It's going to look like this. X plus 1 squared plus 8. Problem is, there's a sneaky little letter A that we need to discover yet, because that could be a negative 1/2, it could be a 3, it could be 1/8, we don't know. So they want the whole equation. So keep that in mind. You're not done when you get here. That's kind of the hard part of this problem, knowing that. And that's why they give you this clue. They're saying it passes through 1, 0. So they're saying, all right, so that in order to find letter A, let x be 1, put it there. Let y be 0, put it there. So the only variable left is A, and that's what I need to find. So this would be 0 is PEMDAS, 2 squared is 4. So 4A plus 8. Subtract 8, subtract 8. I'd get negative 8 is 4A. Divide by 4, divide by 4. A is negative 2. And I have to put that right where that is, which is right here. So I'll just rewrite it. Y equals negative 2, x plus 1 squared plus 8. All right, a little bit of a challenging start, but we practice those. All right. Number 2, multiple choice. That might make you happy, but they're going to mess with you just a little bit. They say, okay, function g, and that's what we're dealing with. Is it this one, this one, this one, or this one? Is a translation or a change of the parent function y equals x squared. Now here come the clues. Graph G is translated left 4 units, talking about the vertex, and down 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our first adjustment here. We're going to say, okay, I know part of it, and that is left 4 would be x plus 4 squared. Don't forget that. And then down 2 minus 2. And we look at all of our answers. We're like, no, 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 no. And because this is a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1, and that's a 1, they're making your life a little easier. They're just telling you, don't worry about letter A in this case. And they don't give you any clues to find it either. So keep that in mind. That's a little difference between these two problems. So, like, wait a minute, this doesn't match any of those. That's why they're saying put it in this form. In other words, they want you to practice a little algebra. Do you know how to square this binomial? Don't square this and think you're doing it right. It's actually x plus 4, x plus 4. Foil that out. X times x is x squared. Outside 4x, inside 4x. 4 times 4 is 16. Don't forget this little bugger, minus 2. This will clean up to x squared plus 8x plus 14. Now where is that? That is right here, letter B. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Now number 3, it says, what is the vertex? Well, in order to know what the vertex is, we need to have it in somewhat of a this looking called vertex form. So we'd say, oh, the vertex would be left 4, down 2. So we've got to make this thing look like that. How? Well, complete the square if you have to, but you see this is a perfect square trinomial. This is a little bit of a gift. So that just factors into x plus 3, which is just f of x equals x plus 3 squared. Now technically there's like a plus 0 here, which means left 3, and then you don't go up or down, which means negative 3, 0 would be my vertex, which is letter A. Now number 4 is quite a bit different. It's actually an application problem. So here it is. The path of a projectile is launched from a 16-foot tall tower. Now think about this. This bottom portion of your grid or graph is time. So if it's launched from a 16-foot tall tower, so that's its starting point. So when no time has gone, it's just sitting there getting ready to be launched from 16 feet. Now, they give you this equation that models the path of the projectile, and it's going to be a parabola. We can see that because it's x squared. It says graph the equation. Well, in order to graph the equation, we're going to need to know this. How long does it take the projectile to reach the ground, and what's the maximum height? So that little question, graph the equation, will provide us with that information. Now here we go. We've got to use our noggins. So we know that this thing goes up and comes down, or it goes up and it comes down, or it goes up and it comes down. We got to figure out where it touches the ground. So we're trying to find out, remember, where does y, this is your y-axis, where does y, the height, end up being 0? That's gonna be what we're gonna be digging for. So that's the clue to set y equal to 0. So we go 0 equals negative 16x squared plus 64x plus 16. You're looking at it and you're going, whoa, we're not going to really factor that, are we, or complete the square? No, no, no. Notice 16 will go into all of these. So on these little problems, they're going to make the numbers work out, I hope. So, and I like it when my squared term is positive. So I'm going to divide by negative 16. So I get 0 equals x squared minus 4x minus 1. That's going to make us make our job to find x a lot easier. Now we could complete the square or quadratic formula, but I'm going to use quadratic formula. There's my a, there's my b, there's my c. So negative b would be 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared 16 minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, which is just 2 times 1. Now we got to crunch this out. So it's 4 plus or minus the square root 16. These two negatives make a positive, so it's 16 plus 4, which is 20 all over 2. Now, this is actually a number, so if I take my handy-dandy calculator and take the square root of 20, I'm not going to waste your time, I get 4 point something like 47 or 48. So, that's actually 4 plus or minus 4.47 all over 2. So I get one answer. 4 plus 4.47 is 8.47 all over 2. The other answer is 4 minus 4.47, which would be a negative 0.47 all over 2. Now don't forget what you're finding. This is all equal to x, equal to x. And here's my two answers for x. Now what's x? The amount of time, x is seconds, the projectile's in the air. It can't be in the air a negative amount of time. You just got to use a little common sense there. So we got to figure out what this is. Now, I'm going to approximate this and say, you know what, 8.47 is really close to 8.5, so I'm going to round that. And that would be 4.25 seconds. All right, so the question is, how long does it take the projectile to reach the ground? It'd be 4.25 seconds, so that would be right about here. Now, the question is, and they're telling us to graph the equation, what's the maximum height? Well, if it starts at 0 seconds and it's in the air for 4.25 seconds, the halfway point would be about half of this. So the halfway point, I'd say, hey, let x be 2 point, what's half of that? Maybe 1.2 seconds. Not perfect, but we're getting close. So now we need to plug this in to our original equation, as crazy as that sounds. So I need to go y equals negative 16 times 2.12 squared plus 64 times 2.12 plus 16. Now I'm going to pause this and do some number crunching. All right, so as you can see, I put 2.12 and for that x, and that x. And I'm just solving it. So this squared times this, negative 71.9, 2.12 times 64 is that. 16 comes along to the right, and I get 79.8, which is approximately 80. We don't really know if it's in feet. Oh yeah, it says feet right there. So it's 80 feet. That'd be my maximum height. Okay, number 5 is just kind of a basic algebra problem. It just says solve it. All right, well, we got to set this equal to 0. So x squared plus x, we got to subtract 12 from that side, subtract 12 from that side, and we factor it. So x, we got to have two factors of negative 12 that add up to 1. So I'm just going to cut right to it. I know 4 and 3 are going to be my combination, but which one has to be negative? The smaller one, because I need more positives. So that's plus 4 minus 3. Now all you've done is factored it. Now you need to solve it. What plus 4 is 0? Negative 4. What minus 3 is 0? 3. There's your two answers. Okay? Now this one is kind of a review of the previous problem. Let me pause this a second. Okay, so this one doesn't have a graph for us, so they kind of expect us to get a mental picture of what's going on. And I've started with this drawing. Now, the question is, where'd this 80 come from? Well, remember, if we read the problem, a ball is thrown from the top row of seats in a stadium. The top row, that's way up there. So we know after time is 0, because it hasn't been thrown yet, if I put a 0 here and a 0 here, my y, because that's what that represents, would be 80. So I know it starts at 80 feet. That's important. It doesn't say to graph it, but there's where it starts. It says how long will it be before the ball hits the ground? So I need to know, does it look like this, 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 or does it just go straight down? I got to do the math. I want to know where y, the height, is 0. Remember, this is my y-axis right here. So I'm going to set y equal to 0. Here's my y. So I'm going to go 0 is equal to negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80. Now, we don't like those big numbers, and 16 just happens to go in all of these. But I'm going to divide everything by negative 16, just like I did on number 4. So 0 is t squared minus 4t, and this is minus 5. Now this one, instead of completing the square and quadratic formula, is just nice because it's factorable. I know two factors of negative 5 that add up to negative 4 are negative 5 and 1. So possible t is 5 seconds and t is negative 1 seconds. But remember, you can't have a negative time. So it takes 5 seconds for that ball to hit the ground. I actually got lucky and just drew it right like that. So that's what the path would look like. Guy's got a good arm. Okay. Now those problems took a while, no doubt about it. Now we're going to get into some that are just easy peasy. If you're listening, solve it. Bada boom, bada bing, do the right thing. Now, plus or minus, remember, take the I out. And what's the square root of 25? 5. So we get plus or minus 5i. This one, binomial times a binomial. And don't forget, I squared equals negative 1. So if we FOIL this out, 4 times 4 is 16. Outside, negative 4i. Inside, 4i. I times negative I would be negative I squared. Now don't forget, I squared is negative 1. So this is like a negative and a negative 1. So these cancel. 16 plus 1 would be 17. Now this one, number 9, we got to get the radical out of the basement. So we got to multiply by the conjugate. And so here we go. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times negative 2 is negative 20i. And now I'm going to do my work over here. 1 times 1 is 1. This times this is negative 2i. This times this